Do you ever wonder why you're doing what you do in life? Do you wish that you could be really happy and passionate about what you do? Or maybe you already are and you want to expand in a different direction. Hi, I'm Barbara Ann, host of What the Why? I love what I do. A lot of that has to do with my story, my journey to this point in life. And guess what? Everybody has a story. So please join me for conversations with leaders from all walks of life about what they do, and more importantly, why they do it, how they found their core purpose, their passion, their mission in life. And if you're looking for your own, maybe you'll get some great suggestions on how you too can find your why.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of What the Why, the show that features conversations with diverse leaders from all walks of life about why they do what they do and how they figured out it's their purpose. Whether you're looking to make changes in your life, big or small, whether you feel stuck and you want to get unstuck, whether it's in your job, your career, or your life in general, all of our guests have something in common with you. At some point, they went through some type of pivot or journey of self-discovery or a combination of the above to figure out what it was they really wanted to do. And today's guest is truly no exception. We've been waiting for a while to talk. I'm super excited to introduce you to Marla Bace. She's a business strategist and executive coach who works with high-performing professionals and business owners, navigating growth, pressure, and change, the only constant. With over 30 years of experience across marketing operations and executive leadership, she serves as a strategic partner to leaders who need a clear place to think, decide, and move forward. And known for her direct but grounded approach to results, Marla helps clients surface what's actually driving their challenges, the real whys behind the whys that are getting in the way, the decision making that really should, I'm not a big fan of that word, but should be done to help them lead with greater consistency in high stakes environments. So I'm super excited to have her join me after all these months since we first met. So without further ado, please join me in a round of applause for Marla Bace. Yay. So
Thank
welcome,
you,
welcome,
Barbara.
welcome.
I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh, me too. And to have you here and to be here, both. Um, so after reading that bio, and that's just really the tip of the iceberg of just kind of touching on the very high level, your accomplishments and achievements. I don't imagine that this is what you wanted to do when you were a little kid. Most kids don't say, "Oh, I want to be a high-performing professionals and, business operations strategist." I did have somebody recently who said they wanted to be CPA and they did become one, but that's kind of more
Wow.
the anomaly. Um, so what did little Marla want to be when she was growing up?
Well, it's funny. You asked me that question when we first chatted, and I had to really go back in my memory banks, but I wanted to be a teacher. And I didn't even think about that until we first spoke. So I guess coming full circle after 35 plus years, realizing that I now get to coach and mentor people from all of my hard-earned wounds and battle scars and everything else is it's gratifying. But you are right. I actually started as a CPA, so I can't imagine anyone wanting to be a CPA as a child.
She did. She lived into it, which was really pretty amazing. But so let's talk about the fact that you started as a CPA. So, okay, so you wanted to be a teacher. You're definitely
Mhm.
doing that. There's an element of CPA involved in this, but how did you get from that point when you were little and you wanted to be a teacher to what you're doing now?
Sure. So you kidded around about the word should. I should have stood up for myself as a child, but I was told very young that if I wanted to have university paid for, I was going to be a doctor, lawyer, or an accountant. And so I guess I was a strategist from a young age because I wasn't going to have student loans. And I went to school and I became an accountant. I was very fortunate that pretty early in my career, I had some higher ups look at me. We were late one night, we were demutualizing Prudential in Newark. And I was in my 20s, and I had some pretty heavy hitters look at me and say, why are you an accountant? And here I'm sitting there thinking I'm going to get fired. And they saw in me that I was much more personable and that I was definitely in the wrong profession. So that was really the first opportunity that I had to switch. And what I didn't have was counsel or coaching to help me figure out where did I really belong. And I just sort of fell into the idea of marketing. And so that was that first pivot. And I was fortunate enough to have people who were championing me and helping me make that pivot. Um, but as you know, we don't all always get that. And I sort of kid, I think I'm on version maybe 3 or 4.0 of who I am now. But that was the softest landing that I had had. And it was pretty fortunate.
Wow.
Mm.
Now, let's talk about what you do.
Yeah.
Business strategist and executive coach. Now, as a coach myself who works with mostly executives and leaders, um, there's there is plenty of executives and leaders to go around that really do need to work with a coach.
Mhm.
How did you decide that this was your target audience?
It's sort of interesting. It found me. So I went into marketing, as I had said, and I was really bootstrapping at that point because it was, I'm going to say, in the early 2000s. So there wasn't Google measurements yet. There weren't ways for people to really track marketing. And so to have a creative individual who was steeped in accounting or in finance numbers, that sort of helped champion my cause, for lack of a better way of saying it. So I was able to move up pretty quickly because I understood how a business ran, and I wasn't just about making things look pretty. I was able to tie the two together. And then from there, I wound up in roles of general management and COOs, and COVID came, and I had a poorly timed decision to go out on my own in January of 2020, but I was fortunate to have a business partner. And so we were paused on a lot of our contracts. And when I came back in and the contracts started up again, what my business partner figured out was that while we knew our marketing and we knew our strategy, and that's what people were coming to us for, they were staying with us because I was truly coaching our clients.
Mm-hmm.
And he is who encouraged me. He's like, why don't you go back and, think about becoming a coach? And so I did do that. And I was fortunate enough to land right in subcontracting for a coaching company. And then now I've been out on my own. But what I have found is that magnetism, right? Your vibrational pull. The people who are finding me are the people who really are successful. They're just at that inflection point. Something's not right, but they don't have a safe space to brainstorm through it with. So I'm not really helping them put a resume together or finding a new job, what a career coach does. And I'm not necessarily helping them create efficiency in their operations. I can do that, and I do it sometimes. But oftentimes I've become that confidant. I had a client this last year who's 78, who's selling a business after 30 years, and he needed someone to be his conscience as he was making decisions because he had a sticky situation and he wanted to make the hard decisions. And if he listened to everybody who was around him, he never would have made them. So there's oftentimes I do ask my clients why me, and they're like, it's just so personal. It's not really coaching. So that's why I now say it's strategy, it's mentoring, it's helping people look at themselves in the mirror and figure out what their gut's telling them and not what they should be doing. Hence that word.
Wow. Yeah, there are so many people out there who could do the work you do,
Mhm.
say they would like to do the work you do, But the fear of change is standing in the way of the fear of staying the same and not sharing their expertise the way you have. Uh, what gave you the courage to move forward with this path where others who aren't you, for
Mhm.
whatever reason, just could not get unstuck and get out of their way to do it?
That's a really good question. And if I'm being completely forthright, I will say to people, coaching and therapy are two separate things. So I will say I was in therapy for years, and my therapist said to me, I should have probably 5 or 7 years before I did for different reasons. So what I'll share is it takes a lot of courage, and it takes, in my opinion, pragmatism and planning
Mm-hmm.
to get over the fear. The fear is, face everything and rise, or false evidence appearing real, or whatever you want to call it. So if you can get the real evidence in front of you, what's it going to take to put away so that I have for that rainy day? What's it going to take to get my brand out there? Should I work a little bit on the side before I make the pivot or the switch? Asking the hard questions and planning for all of it. I have I also volunteer for SCORE because I like to do what I do, and there are people who can't afford what I do. So there are people who are startup. And I had a young millennial come to me about a month ago, and she was like, "You're not the right coach for me." And I said, "That's fine." And it's because I asked those hard questions. She wanted to know, can I invest in this and get started? And I was asking, have you put together a financial statement? Have you talked to a CPA? Have you spoken to a lawyer? Have you put the things in place or understood what you need to put in place to be successful? And so many people think it's an overnight decision or it's just courage. And I really encourage people, if you plan, right? Failing to plan is planning to fail.
Fail.
And so I did. I also had a life pivot after a 30-year marriage. I was stepping away from that. And with that, it gave me the opportunity to really look at everything and say, what do I need to do to be a whole person and to be happy? And actually, last week, I had someone who would have been impacted by that situation, who's only 34 years old, say to me, I was very hurt when it happened, but wow, you are such a different person. And to hear a 34-year-old tell me I blossomed, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So it didn't happen overnight. There were struggles, and like I said, I've reinvented myself. I went from accountant to marketer to general manager to marketing strategy consultant to what I do now. And it's being honest with yourself, because if you're happy and you're doing what you're passionate about, you will be successful.
Mhm. I love that. And it's interesting, they say now that most people will have 5 careers in their lifetime. And so, even though there's some overlap, one could argue that you definitely, I know I do, and probably a lot of you listening and watching out there probably also can relate that that number is proving to be more true with every passing year. So let's talk about the type of client that you work with,
Sure.
because you specialize in executive and in leadership. And so to the extent that you can share, um, what type of clients do you typically work with?
Sure. Um, I have both male and female clients. A lot of people ask me that. I would say people who are leaning towards the idea of, even if they don't acknowledge it, that they can read someone's energy or they're able to read a room. And
Mhm.
so for their career, they've read the room and they've been successful. And now suddenly the rooms, there something's missing and they can't place it. So, as much as you say executives, I have 30-year-olds who have come to me who have invested in their career because they wanted to go from senior manager to director. And they said, I kept getting this feedback from my boss that I need to think like a director. I need to be more strategic, but they're not giving me tangibles. And they didn't know what to do. And within the first 20 minutes of talking to them, because I've probably sat in their shoes at some point, I was able to figure out the dynamics. And in a very short period, I work with a lot of my clients in 3-month increments. We were able to figure out what was going on, how to interact or how to flip that. So in that case, it's young professionals who are trying to move up a ladder. I also have a client who recently, came to me recently. It's been over the last year, but their situation was changing so much, they just felt misaligned and they couldn't figure out what was going on. And the reality was that the company had shifted their role so tremendously but hadn't recognized that shift, and not just in pay, but in interaction, in reporting, in responsibility. And once we were able to name it, they were able to own it, claim it, shift it, and get on the right path for them to be happy. So change isn't always the answer. Sometimes it's change within the environment you're in, right? It's like, how do you shift that so that you're happier? So in that case, that's really a PE type situation. So corporate PE. And then, as I mentioned, the person who's looking to get out of their business, that was manufacturing. And they were an owner. And it was funny when they were hiring me as a management consultant, I asked them why. And they said they had interviewed a variety of people. And most people said to them, well, if you have a cancer, you have an issue, you get rid of it, and then you solve for the problem. My my methodology is usually to work with the person to really see what's going on and is there something that's potentially causing that situation and can we shift it. Long story short, they did wind up getting rid of the situation, but we did try a path forward to help before they had to take that path. And that was, why they had chosen me. So, I tend to try and see the best in people and work with people where I think a lot of other people come in and they try and clear the field and replace. So, I'd say my clients are the ones who want to help improve their organizations or themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be an executive. It could be a solopreneur. It could be a business owner. It could be a young professional. It's just they want to invest in themselves so that they can recognize and realize their capabilities.
And I love that you said that because that's why I usually frame it as executive and leadership. About half of the people I work with are executives or um, leaders of leaders. And then there's a group that tends to be leaders of individuals. If we use the lingo, there's the executives, then there's the leaders of leaders, then there's the leaders of individual contributors, and then there's
And
those
don't forget
individual
people
contributors
managers.
and the people managers and the project managers, and then there's those
Mhm.
leaders of, then there's those individual contributors that have been identified as high potential, as if anybody can really truly know anybody's potential unless they know the environment. One of the things that I really love about what you said is you weren't ready to use that very old proverbial throw the baby out with the bathwater phrase, way of just kind of coming in, and as someone who's also trained in change management, that is an approach that is often used that really is not in the best interest of the company. And they usually don't find out until it's too late. So I was really excited to hear you say that. For those who may have missed it, if you could just repeat again what you said, because this is super important about the approach to a situation like what you dealt with.
It's really taking a look at what's going on. Oftentimes, people are looking at people through the filter that they've always seen. So I'm going to go back to when I ran Amex Concierge. I stepped into the role and I was told X, Y, and Z people needed to be fixed. And it's just not who I am. So I went in, and my management style is to roll up my sleeves. So we were sitting in getting ready for a quarterly business review. We were in that room until midnight. And I wanted to see how people thought, and I wanted to see how the process went. And then what I was able to realize was it wasn't the people. Guess what? It was the leadership. It was the lack of communication, the lack of direction. And we had the best QBR they had had in years after that because there was a bunch of 20 and 30 something year olds who had been with the company for 10 years that were left on their own to manage and to communicate with SVPs at American Express. And I'm like, the two aren't that they haven't been trained in the same language. They haven't been trained in the same
Mhm.
deck presentation and all the other stuff. So all too often, and I guess this also comes from being in marketing for so many years, it's usually communication. It's
Yeah.
not usually the people. And it's getting people to speak the same language once they're communicating, right? So, in that case, we wound up spinning off um, the division. We were a white label company for American Express to our competitors. And the irony is the people who I stepped in and fought for. I love when I see on my LinkedIn, they're still there, they're still getting promoted, they're still getting, and I'm like, they were the lifeblood of the company. If I had done what I had been asked to do, we would never have had a successful divestiture of that organization.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. There's so much about that I'm so glad that you shared that because it's really, really important. And interestingly, a CEO of a company I do contract work with talked about how so many companies are making these decisions um, without looking at the why behind. Yeah, how
Mhm.
many times have we got, what the why?
Yeah,
What
I
is the
love it.
reason behind what's going on? There's so much more, always so much more. And and it's interesting because I want to also go back to something you touched on. You mentioned that a lot of times you're working with people in like 3 month increments.
Mhm.
And when people think about coaching, because there are those out there that create perma clients,
Yes.
and that's okay as long as you're continuing to move forward on different things. But it has kind of created an assumption out there that if I get involved with a coach, I'm looking at, a large, long-term commitment. And
Mhm.
so, but different things are needed by different people. So how do you approach working with clients that are in different places and different spaces?
Yeah, I love that we're having this conversation because it's a little bit of my soapbox. So when I became a coach, I did not realize, nobody told me there's all these 6-week courses, you come out, you get a certification, and you're a coach. I have the battle scars. I have 30 years of hitting my head on a glass ceiling, having to wear pantyhose because I couldn't wear pants. Like you name it, I've been down that path. And when I stepped into coaching, as I said, I had subcontracted and I went into one of those overnight coaching phenomena environments. And what I saw was we're going to sell a package and we're going to force them into our way of doing things. And whether it worked or not, our goal is to keep them signing up year after year. And all I saw were clients who were frustrated. And I was in customer experience when I was at Amex. So that didn't work for me. And, I could see these clients actually needing real help. They needed a confidant. They needed someone to brainstorm with over an issue. Then they needed to be able to go solve the issue. And if they wanted to come back, to be able to have that conversation again. So I decided that I was not going to be like everybody else. I don't have mastermind classes and year-long packages or whatever. I work almost like if you do go to therapy, where it's every 2 weeks, let's, have a conversation, let's have an objective, let's solve a problem. But I only ask for 3 months because most things can be solved in a 90-day plan. And so it goes back to that whole planning piece of it. So we work through 90 days, and then I have people who get what they need and they're gone. I have somebody who actually just started up again today after a 90-day break. They were working. They said to me, you know what, I want to get through this process. And I'm like, fine, we'll go on pause. How I try and make it more palatable is if they'll guarantee me the 3 months up front, I'll actually discount it. So, this way they're committed. I do want a level of commitment that they're going to do the work.
Sure.
But once we get through that 90 days, it's up to them if they want to go on a hiatus, if they want to come back, if they just want to jump on for a couple of sessions to work through the next problem, or they have a big meeting coming up and they want me to look at their presentation. That's the other thing, because I don't just coach. I do sort of lean into that mentor consultant type role. I will look at proposals for my clients to make sure they're protecting themselves. I will look at their PowerPoints to make sure they've gotten their point across. Those are things that I can't not do. And I think that's what also makes it sticky. So even if it's 3 months, they're going to come back because they know they're going to have that support mechanism.
And it's interesting that you say that because just today, I joke with my the people that I work with, but I'm totally serious. When somebody really what they needed was a consultant, I said, okay, so I'm going to pause here, and I actually go through the motion. I'm going to take my coaching hat off
Yeah,
and
I
put my
do that
consulting
too.
hat on, and now I'm your consultant, and I can
Yeah,
give you,
yeah,
technical advice around this very specific thing. And then
yeah,
when we wrap up, I would say, okay, I'm going to take that hat back off and put the coaching hat back on, so
yeah,
that everybody's clear because for those who are watching that maybe aren't familiar,
yeah.
they're not the same thing, but they're
No, they're not. And thank you for saying that, because I forget, but I do that with them. And I have clients who like will roll their eyes at me because I'm so demonstrative about it. Like you say, the hat's going off and the hat's going on. I'm like, okay, I'm in consultant mode now. I'm telling you this is the right way to go versus coach mode or mentor mode, which is how do you feel? Where, the open-ended questions, right?
right.
So
Yeah, so I love that you do both. And then but then for those that do turn into longer engagements, because there's this ongoing supporting role or need, or maybe you start working with their staff, that is something, as I understand it, you also offer as an option too.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm trained in customer experience and customer service. So I came back from vacation today and I have a client who my last official check from was last September. I had an email in my inbox today that said, I'm back out of it was a personal situation. I'm getting back to the office. The fractional CFO we brought in a couple months ago isn't working. I see this person and this person connected to you. Can we, get on a call and can you help me figure out what was the missed? And so, that's fine. I'm like, that's not going to be a full engagement, but it could turn into something. So, I'm always going to be the person who answers the phone and who is going to help someone because again, when you're doing SLAs for Amex on, an NPS score of 9 to 10, you're pretty conditioned that that's how you handle your clients, right?
Yes, yes. And for those who don't know what those acronyms are, let's see, SLS, it's service level.
Agreement. So it's your service level agreement. So you have to
Thank you.
handle X amount of calls
Right.
in Y amount of minutes with a 1 to 5 survey,
Yeah.
whatever. And an NPS is the net promoter score.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't needed to know any of that since 2008. And so anything that I don't actually have to know, I like to be able to rely on others for it because that's what they know. I gotta, so as we wind down, there's a lot of people going right now. Okay, so she got out of a marriage after 30 years. She went through all these different pivots. She worked in major roles and she started her own company and she's helping others move forward. And whether it's they themselves feel stuck in their company or whatever they're doing, or maybe they want to pivot into what you're doing, what advice can you offer? The risk of giving advice, you can put your consultant hat on if you need to. But what advice, because so much of this is mindset, right? So what advice can you offer to our viewers who may want to follow in some version of the footsteps and the path that you've forged?
Um, be honest with yourself. It's a lot of work. It's easier to get up and let somebody else pay your paycheck. And anyone who tells you it's not, it's that's not the truth. It's there's office politics when you're a W-2 and you're working 9 to 5. And there are other cultural things that are going on as far as downsizing. I was on with a fellow coach out in Silicon Valley today, and we were talking about, is AI threat real? So I recognize there are things in an office environment. I mean, I was in corporate America until 2020. But if you're willing to do the work, it can be super rewarding. But it's like anything else, and I guess this is the marketer in me. Do your competitive research. Also, do your research in general as to what is it that you want to do? Who is it you want to serve? Again, the marketing person. If you're in a very defined niche with a very defined solution, you are going to have an easier time of it than I am here to serve everybody. I have a mentee right now that I talk to within SCORE, and they do marketing strategy work. And I was trying to throw her a referral. And I said to her, I go, this doesn't really fall in your niche, but you're in startup mode. You might want to catch everything that comes your way. It's small as what you can do. And so it's flexibility, it's planning, it's knowing, it's being resourceful, resilient. There's a lot of no's to the yeses, and to know what your why is if you're going to make that change.
Awesome. Awesome advice. And for those who don't know, and because the SCORE is something specific to the United States, it stands for Service Corps of Retired Executives, even though many of them aren't. And they're an official resource partner of the U.S. Small Business Administration, as are women's business development centers and small business development centers on different campuses around the country in the United States and some of our territories. Separate from that, though, there are resources for you in Canada that are available through the Canadian government, other countries, even Singapore. I can speak to that because I coach somebody in government in Singapore. And if you are a founder or funder and or you're a founder who's seeking funding or a funder who wants to invest, there's also entities such as the Founder Institute out there that are always looking for companies that want to work with coaches and mentors that can get started up and connect with people like Marla and others who are experts in this work. Thank you for asking that question because admittedly, trust me, SCORE can be great, but it is a volunteer organization. And so there are, we'll just say, different levels of mentors and coaches, and the fact that you took the opportunity to point out what that young woman really needed as someone who used to change SCORE representatives. Thank you for doing that because they need to hear more of that.
Yeah.
There's also an online portal for SCORE where you can pick and choose your SCORE reps from around the country. So I just want to throw that out there as kind of an added push that there are resources out there around the world that are free. Check where you are, see what's available, explore it. And then, of course, if you have resources and you want to work with somebody who really knows what they're doing, I would strongly encourage you to check out the links for Marla. Now, all of her contact information that she provided us, her hashtags, her YouTube, her LinkedIn are all going to be in the comment section wherever you're accessing this show. But for those who are just listening audio or just happen to have a pen handy, what is the best way for people to reach you?
Info@marlabace.com, and it's MARLA, B as in boy, A, C like cat, E. So it sounds like baseball, but it's spelled BACE. So info@marlabace.com.
Awesome. And so there you go. Now you know how you can reach out to her and learn about how she can work with you to help you, whatever level of stuck or unstuck that you want to get. I guess whatever level of stuck you are and want to get unstuck, whatever that may be, she's definitely somebody that can help you get there.
Yeah. And Barbara, I do take, if someone isn't sure if I'm right and they want to spend 30 minutes having a conversation with me, I'm always willing to do that.
Wow, so even better. So You have nothing to lose other than 30 minutes of investing 30 minutes of your time to find out whether or not Marla is the right fit for you, which is a perfect example of why I host so many other coaches, because different people fit different people. As we said when we first met, that's why McDonald's and Burger King and Taco Bell and all these other entities can all survive and thrive across the street from each other, because different approaches and different personalities work best with different people. But trust me, you cannot go wrong with Marla. And so I hope if you're at all interested, please check her out, like, follow, share her. And thank you again, Marla, for being on the show. This has been a while in coming. I'm so glad we finally got to do this. And
Thank you for having me.
you are most welcome. And to all of you who are watching and or listening from wherever you're accessing this podcast, thank you for joining us. You have so many viewing and listening choices these days. So many are out there. And so we really, truly appreciate the fact that you took your time and invested your energy to come and listen and watch and or learn with us. And always remember, whether you're looking to make changes in your life or your company and your career, no matter how big or small, you can continue to tune in for more new and illuminating and inspirational conversations with guests such as Marla, who went through many different pivots throughout her life to find her purpose and to live it.